Welcome, Sojourners. This is Jonathan with Sojourners Awake, and this is a very brief tutorial on how to create a index card RPG Sojourner for your next game. First of all, we're going to start with a really cool name. I am going to make a character for our recent Stillwater Swamp, and I like Henrik Toadstomp. There you go. Cool little froggy name. I like that. The world, of course, is Bonzarl, and you could have your own world and your own name. And what I like to put here is specifically where the person is from. So we had six options in our last game of where the characters could be from. And this is very important because these six areas were directly anchored into the adventure. And so I like to anchor the characters into the place where the adventure is happening. It helps the characters care more about the adventure. Life form, fancy way of saying race or species or whatever you like to say. Um, I don't have any hobbits in the world, uh, but I do have short humans called Hin, and that's what he is. He's a short human. Type, this is the pathway the character has chosen. I'm going to pick a warrior, and more on that later. And story, I'm going to generate a quick story based on like a personality archetype. I am always looking for ways to make life easier and more convenient. It may not be much of a reason to go on an adventure, but it sure helps me get the personality of who this person is. All right, so we got a brief outline. If you want, you can, do something really cool in this little box. A lot of kids and people like to draw pictures of their characters, which I think is great. Next up, we're going to do strength and all the scores. So the basic rule is you get a total of 6 points that you can put in any one of these categories. And my personal rule is you can max out at 5. So Henrik Toastmaster is a warrior. I'm going to put 3 points into strength. And he's a pretty hardy fellow, so I'm going to put 1 point into constitution. And he's kind of charming, so I'm going to give 3 points in charisma. If you notice, dexterity, intelligence, and wisdom are just going to get a straight 0. And all that means is whenever you make a check to determine if you're successful on a task, you're going to roll a d20 and then you will add the appropriate modifier. In case of strength, if I do something that requires this character to have strength, I'll roll a d20 plus a 3. Okay. A d20 plus 3, and then hopefully I meet or beat the target. If I roll a dexterity check, I don't add any modifier. It's just a straight d20 roll. And it's very helpful to remember because the d20 kind of looks like that right there. Kind of looks like a d20, so you remember what dice to use. Okay, let's see. Next up, I get 2 points for being a hen. And so this is just to say, this is kind of to demonstrate how, depending on where you came from or what your background is, what family you're born into, you're more likely to have some other kind of features. I think Henrik Toad, his dad was a librarian. So even though Toad Smash, Henrik didn't go to school or anything, his dad taught him quite a bit. So I'm going to put those 2 points in intelligence. And again, you could do, I mean, obviously it always ends up to 8 points total. You can mix and match, you could randomize, it's totally fine. But I like to put some thought into why this person's intelligence is above average. Why is their strength above average? And of course, help it serve the game. When you have those 8 points in there, you can count them, you see they're 8. Again, you have to max out at 5 in any category. And there's no negatives, if you notice. It's just, if there's a blank there, it's 0. So if I ever make an intelligence check about something, it's likely that because my dad was a librarian, possibly I know the answer. So I get to add a +2 to my d20 roll whenever I roll that. And I get to add the 2. All right. So now we're moving on to the other dice. So once again, the dice are very wonderfully graphicked here. So you can see there's like little pictures of what the dice look like. And each of them, the basic dice, the basic dice is just if you are trying something that requires your hands or your brain. If you're trying to untie a knot, if you're trying to pick a lock, if you're trying to read a book in a very stressful situation, if you're trying to remember what species of animal, anytime it takes any sort of effort, the game master will have you roll the basic dice. If you're punching someone in a bar fight, that's using your hands and your wits, so you'll use basic dice. So I'm going to say you get 4 points in any of these categories. I'm going to say he does have 1 point in basic. Um, weapons and tools, he is a weapons master warrior. I'm going to say he's got a set of 3 fishing spears that he hauls around. I'm going to give him 2 points in weapons and tools. And he's always interested in guns. So he's been studying about guns. He's never seen one before. In the case he ever runs into one, he wants to be able to use it. So I'm going to put 1 point in the gun. We'll see how that turns out. Again, he starts out with fishing spears, but maybe he gets a gun along the way in the story. I'm kind of preparing ahead of time. Energy and magic, he's not going to get anything in that because he's not studying magic or anything. He's not going to be a spellcaster. And the ultimate dice is kind of cool. When you roll a check for like a d20, any one of these numbers, and let's just say he's attacking a monster with his strength score. He's going to roll the d20. He rolls a 20 on the dice, which is called a natural 20. That's the best possible outcome. He gets to roll this d6. Let's just say he rolls a 4. 4 plus 2 is 6, so he does 6 points of damage. Then he also gets to roll this special ultimate dice. This is to exemplify that whatever you did was freaking awesome and you should get more points for it. So the ultimate dice is from 1 to 12 possible points. So you could roll a 1 and add it to your 6, or you could roll a 12 and add it to your 6. So it could be pretty high or pretty low, and that's just it creates a lot more fantastic, pulpy, swashbuckling adventure in the game. You can put points in the ultimate, if you noticed. I didn't. I only had 4 points to spend. I decided to spend them on the things that I'm most likely to use. So that's it. Let's see. Again, you can draw a character here if you want to. A lot of times people draw during the game. You can draw little maps. A flower. Cool. All right, now here is hearts. So in the game, everyone begins with 1 heart. 1 heart is 10 hit points. That's as simple as that. It really simplifies the game. You get 10 points before you die. So let's just say a monster attacks you with a weapon. A goblin has a sword, and the goblin hits you, and he gets to roll a d6. Well, that's anywhere from 1 to 6 points of damage. If it does max damage, it's a 6. That's 10 minus 6, so now you're at 4, just 4 health. You can do the math that if that goblin hits you again for a second time, you could be at 0 and about to die. So not really great. It makes for really effective and quick combat. I like to think of it as semi-realistic. If you get hit with a sword, it's probably going to be just a couple more seconds before you're dead. If you get hit with magic, for example, that could be a one-shot kill because magic can do anywhere from 1 to 10 points of damage. Do the math. If you only have 10 hit points, that could drop you to 0 and then you are dying. As your character levels up in the game master can award you more hearts. It's possible. So now you have 20 points, means you're going to last longer in combat. On average, take 4 hits instead of 2. Something fun I like to do, I don't think I've seen this in a rule book or anywhere, but with guns, to make them a little more deadly, if you roll an 8 or max damage on a gun dice roll, the dice explodes and you get to roll again for free and add that to the damage with no limit. So if you roll 3 8s in a row, that's automatically 24 points of damage, probably a kill shot. So that's to exemplify how dangerous guns can be. When it comes to magic, magic has 4 levels of power. So anytime a spellcaster can choose to spend spell points to cast it at 1 level, in which they will only use 1 dice. If they cast it at 2, it's 2 dice, 3, and 4. So you can see that if you cast a spell at 4th level, you get to roll that d10 dice 4 times and add up the damage to do whatever. If you cast like a fire blast, it's 4 dice worth of damage. Now you could roll all ones and you just get a measly little 4 points of damage, or you could roll all tens and you get 40 points of damage. So it's quite, yeah, I mean, you can see how round by round the combat is going to change up and the adventure is going to be pretty exciting. So moving on down here in defense, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, defense, the way you calculate this is everyone gets a defense of 10. All that means is if the game master is a monster, let's say it's a evil mermaid with a spear, the evil mermaid has to roll the dice and get a 10 or higher to hit you in order to do damage. Most of the time, that's going to be what happens. But you can boost that defense by, if you notice, boosting your con bonus, which this represents your hardiness, your ability to shrug off damage. So you notice my character has a 1 in con, so it kind of added that. It's kind of neat. Added the 1 there, so the 10 becomes an 11. So my character, Henrik Toadsmash, a monster has to hit an 11 or higher to do any damage. Now, if Henrik gets a shield somewhere along the way or gets some really cool leather armor that he made from a monster, then I can add bonuses to that number. So I can add another +1. I'm going to do that now just so you can see. Now, the 10 becomes a 12. So that's pretty cool. Now it's a 12 or higher to hit me. On average, the monsters are just going to roll a d20, a 20-sided dice to hit you. And believe it or not, more than half the time your characters are going to get hit. So you might find some cool stuff along the way that boosts that number. Maybe a maximum, I think, for the sake of the game, I would not let it go beyond an 18. I think 18 is the possible max, just because I don't want anyone with a 20 armor class. It's just, you're never going to get hit. And it kind of, in my opinion, it takes all the air out of the game, takes all the tension out of the game. Once again, I like maximums of 5, so I would put a maximum on the Constitution bonus 5 and a maximum on the defense 5. So no matter how much armor you get, you can only max out at 15. Yeah, most of the time the monsters are going to just roll a simple 20-sided dice and see if they hit you. 50% of the time they would. Okay. Hero Coin is a really cool place. What I do is I give awards out to players who do good player-to-player moments. Most of the time the players are asking me as the game master questions and talking to me. Technically, as a game master, I'm not really there. I'm the walls, I'm the wind, I'm the ground they walk upon. I'm just narrating their story. I prefer that players talk to each other in character. When I catch people doing that, it's a really cool moment, it's entertaining, I hand out a hero coin. Rule is you can have 1 hero coin. It can spill over into the next game. And you can cash in that hero coin for a reroll. So if I roll an intelligence check and I don't like the outcome, I can give the hero coin back to the game master, reroll, and accept that result. Furthermore, if I notice one of my players rolls a bad roll and I don't like the outcome, I can use my own hero coin, cash it in, and ask the player to reroll that dice. Last but not least, dying. The way this works is when you drop to 0 HP, your character is unconscious and or dying. I like a little bit of realism, so if you get hit with a bladed weapon, most likely you're bleeding and you have a mortal wound. If you were strangled by a monster, let's say like a constrictor or something, and maybe you just passed out, what I might rule is that when you drop to 0 HP because of strangulation, you lose a turn and then you wake up with 1 hit point the next turn. But again, if you get blasted with an explosion and you're at risk of being burned alive, yeah, you're dying. So you work with your game master on how you want to do that. But the simple rule is when you drop to 0 HP, you begin dying. At that point, the game master rolls a d6 dice, just like the weapons and tools dice, 6-sided, and you have 1 to 6 rounds before you are dead, and moving on to the afterlife. If you are dying, you can't save yourself. Another player has to stabilize you by rolling a intelligence check to see if they could patch up the wounds or figure out a way to bring you back. Healing magic can also be applied. That usually results in spending of a spell point and therefore giving you that HP, the hit points back. And you again, if you roll the D10 to do some magical healing, you can get 1 hit point back all the way up to 10 hit points back. That could be pretty cool. In that case, you might just pop right back up, Pulp Fiction style, ready to go. If you are dead, no one saves you, or you get hit with a weapon while you are unconscious, you are dead. And we have a wonderful ceremony for your character. Character gets a funeral, moves on, and if you're lucky, the game master might narrate the epilogue of the afterlife and how that character moves on to the next world. So that's basically it. A quick way to build a wonderful character using ICRPG, Index Card RPG. It's very simple, like an index card. It's easy to use, easy to carry around. Not a lot of fluff, and it leaves a lot more room for imagination, as I have found. When you strip down the mechanics to a very simple, basic structure, the imagination and creativity of our imagination is much more free to roam about and have fun. You spend less time looking at your character sheet and more time looking at the faces around the table. So, as for now, may your story continue.